everyone, my name is Doug Polk, and welcome to Polkernews, this week on 2+2 presented by Upswing Poker. We got a nice lineup today with Breakout Gaming, Fish on a Heater, and Tom Dwan, the Missing Man. Before we get into that, I want to talk about a Twitch stream I recently had, which was in my top 5 favorite Twitch streams I've ever had. I played the session on ACR and jumped into some 2550 PLO when an opponent tweeted at me that they were ready to play. I wasn't totally sure if I was going to play, but after a little bit I was like, you know what, let's just get in the mix. And I promptly ran my bankroll on the site down to about 4K. I was on 2 tables and was now short stacking, and I was feeling the heat from the Twitch chat. At that point I went on a super sick heater, you could say I was maybe a fish on a heater, and turned my 4K into 60K all on stream. I'm not sure what the most money that's been won in a cash game session on Twitch is. Usually people are playing tournaments, so the big scores tend to be from those tournament instances, but this has to be up there for amount of money won on a Twitch stream. Also, it was nice not to bust my account. Frankly, if I'd busted my account, I'm not entirely sure what I was going to do. So I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone that was there for the stream. It was a great stream, and I really enjoyed the time together. Oh! Quads! We got those quads! What's up, quads? I love quads. We do lose to straight flushes, though. Someone get Kyle Bowker in here. Our first subject today is going to be Breakout Gaming. About 2 years ago, a thread was posted that there was a new poker site coming out that would be called Breakout Gaming. Some of the names listed included players such as Todd Brunson, Ted Forrest, David Benjamin, and several other people that we'll get into in a moment. After getting some traction in the thread, getting a little bit of popularity going, nothing seemed to happen, and then a couple of years went by, only to be recently bumped. The thread was recently bumped with a roadmap for success that the company is outlining that goes month by month into their release. I personally find this to be quite funny. If you look at these things that they're saying they're going to release, there's free poker, and then esports launching in July. Well, it's August now, and I don't actually even know what that means. What does esports mean for Breakout Gaming? I've not heard of anything from them. I don't know what games they're going to do. What does that even mean? I think these are things that are good questions. In August, there's the Breakout Gaming store. Again, what store? What games? What's going on? But then apparently by September, there's a lottery. In September as well, there's fantasy sports. The main gaming platform launches in October, and skill gaming, which I'm a little confused, I guess, between the main gaming and the skill gaming, maybe that means poker specifically, launches in November. These are huge undertakings. Each one of these things, when it says, for example, esports. Esports is a massive genre. What does that really mean? And then there's DFS, or fantasy sports in there. I assume that means daily fantasy sports. That's also just launched in the middle of the lottery and the main gaming platform. It seems like they're trying to just be like, oh yeah, this is a good idea, we'll throw that in. That's a good idea, we'll get it in there too. This can make money, we'll get that in there, without any real plan. If you're going to launch something, you should try and build out within that niche. Pick something. If you're going to be a poker site, don't try and be an esports site as well, when frankly, what does that even mean? What is Breakout PvP? I have legitimately no idea what this means, and I'm someone that's pretty active within esports. I would say I'm a fan of several different games. So this roadmap seems extremely ambitious, and frankly, it's now August. Have they even done these things? I don't know. I also want to go back and talk about this list of pros as well, because I do feel like this is kind of a who's who of has-been poker players. Now, there's a few people on the list that are still fairly legitimate. Well, basically, I feel like what this lineup really lacks are people that are currently changing the game, people that are currently big names, and people that can really bring people into the site. This sort of feels a little bit like, oh, esports are big and coins are big. Let's just make a site and we'll just throw a bunch of people on there. And I have to say, I have pretty low expectations for the future of this brand. Next up, we have the thread, Tom Dwan Isler 1, whales on a heater that finally got cooked. And basically the premise of this OP is as follows. These players went on big heaters, got all of this following, became these big players at the highest stakes, But really, at the end of the day, they were just running hot, and their time is kind of gone. And I guess I really wanted to kind of look at this in like the bigger sense of like all players rather than looking at specifically Isildur and Durrrr, and we'll talk about them in a moment. But I want to talk about just the idea of running hot to kind of make it to the high stakes, what's required for that to happen, and, you know, can it frankly happen at all? And I think if we're going to start off with talking about the subject, we kind of have to break it down to cash games and tournaments. In tournaments, truly extraordinary things can happen. People can find ways to just run the best ever and win millions of dollars. So I would never say in a tournament setting that someone winning something means that they're the best or they're extremely good. You know, look at maybe not the last 4 to 5 main event winners, but if you look at the 5 years before that, there's a lot of great examples of people winning the main that were not very good poker players. Jamie Gold, but still, a lot of examples of that. And I would say that if you look at tournaments in general, the way the game type functions is that most players lose, some players win a little bit, and just 1 or 2 very lucky players win a ton. So even if they're very good players, and there is a correlation between skill and results, at the end of the day, anyone can run hot, and basically you can have your next Jerry Yang. Cash games are a little bit different though, because with cash games, the edges tend to be much bigger, and over time you tend to realize that edge. Now, I think specifically speaking about a few players back in the day, there were definitely some people that ran hot or didn't run hot in key spots. And I guess I'm really thinking about the Rail Heaven games. I'm sure anyone that's been following poker for the last 5 or 6 years knows what I'm talking about. Back in 2009, 2010, when Rail Heaven, which was the 501k table at full tilt, would run daily. It was usually sparked by Guy Liberté, and then all of the players would jump in trying to bum hunt him, essentially. The thing about those games were a lot of people took very big shots and had a lot of themselves because they knew that it was a great opportunity and because there wasn't going to be, basically there wasn't going to be a lot of time to try and capitalize on that money. Guy was dropping like Lord knows what per session. I think he ended up losing across all of his accounts $7 or $8 million. And so getting into those games was huge. A lot of people that ran hot when they first jumped in ended up going on to win millions in those games. And the regs that did not, they jumped in and lost a few buy-ins, were forgotten about and lost their shot to shine. So in that exact instance, there actually were some moments where people could run hot or not run hot, and it could be career defining. Now, in general, in cash games, that's rare. That doesn't really work like that. You start lower and you build your way up. But there are sometimes these huge games, you know, also the Malaysia games, the 4-8 games that kind of spring to mind. Those were expensive for me. But there are certain moments where people can really run hot and crush because of that. When you look back in the day and you look at, you know, the people that kind of became big back in the day, a lot of times they were way too aggressive with their bankroll, and because they ran hot, you know about them, whereas the Grimstars of the world grinded their way back into oblivion. So is there luck in poker in terms of people being able to go on a heater? For sure. And like, you know, in extreme examples, if someone, you know, is able to just use like a few buy and bankroll management, they can really run up bankrolls. But here's the thing. If you look at cash game players as a whole, if you look at the people that really have won a lot of money in those games, I would say the majority of them, if not close to all of those players, would do it every time. I have no doubt in my mind that Jungle Man, if he started poker a year before or a year after, or he just played a different game type, or he just had a completely different career path within poker, that he would be successful because of how good he is at poker. But for some specific players, they definitely ran hot enough in those games to build their careers. If you look at Durrr's winnings, and I believe this is correct, but I don't want to get quoted wrong, but I believe he has more winnings on PTR against Guy's accounts than he has, period. Meaning if you took away Guy's high stakes action, he would actually be net negative. I think that that says a lot. A lot of his money came from these specific games against soft opponents and not playing against good high stakes opponents online. So I think if we look at, you know, going back to talking about Dwan and Isildur, I think if we look at them as individuals, I would say that Isildur is the stronger player of the two, especially being able to hang in today's environment in those 8-game lineups. I think Isildur is a much stronger player, and Isildur has certain games that he's world class. Deuce to 7 springs to mind from my little knowledge of what people have to say as a game that he's definitely world class at. I would imagine almost all of the mixed games he's very good. I think his big bet games tend to be a bit weak because if you look at the people that are really good at No Limit and PLO, they're spending a ton of time there really becoming great at that game. So overall, strong player, but definitely ran hot to get someone like Tom Dwan to play him at those stakes. Tom Dwan, I would put a little more of the two, I guess, as a fish on a heater, in that he got to win almost all of his money specifically from Guy, and he really didn't have that longevity online that Isildur has found over the past few years. I mean, frankly, Isildur battles a lot of very tough people and is able to run up bankrolls. Tom Dwan, not really the same case. So, are these guys whales who finally got cooked? I would say no. I would say Isildur definitely not. I think Isildur just struggles from things like bankroll management and things like game selection, but still a very good player. Tom Dwan, I would say not quite the same player as Isildur, but still a reasonably good player that also was probably pretty aggressive with their bankroll and did run hot at the right time. So I guess we'll see kind of moving forward what's in store for both of these players, and I do hope that they can have somewhat of a return to glory, because frankly, what went down at Rail Heaven when they battled each other at 501k was epic, and those were some of the best moments of online poker history. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like their heater might be over, and the people that are truly good at cash games have kind of risen up and will maintain that position for some time to come.
You got lucky there.
Yep, it was luck.
Finally today we have Tom Dwan, the missing man. And actually not so missing as a recent person tweeted and posted about that they found him, I believe, in Las Vegas. Not sure where they're at. Might have been in the gym. I'm not entirely sure. But still missing from today's spotlight. What happened? Where did it all go wrong? All right, Lord knows what Durrr's up to these days. I actually find it a little bit strange how often I get asked specifically, so what's Durrr up to, like we're friends. I don't really know Durrr at all, and I want to talk a little bit about what Durrr has done because, frankly, in my opinion, this could be one of the largest scams in poker history. What happened with Tom Dwan and Jungle Man was a scam, in my opinion. Because if you look at what happened, Dwan and Jungle Man were both supposed to escrow to Phil Ivey for the Durrrr challenge. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, the Durrrr challenge was, I believe, it was a 50k hands, 25 or 50k hands to be played between two players, where Durrrr would lay 3-1 to anyone in the world except Phil Galfond. The 3-1 was going to be side bet to Phil Ivey, his 1.5 million to Jungle Man's 500k. Jungle Man escrowed to Phil Ivey, and Tom Dwan did not, despite saying that he did. So now, Phil Ivey only has Jungle Man's money, and Tom Dwan's money is not really in escrow. They played 200-400 heads up no limit, and Jungle Man got out to something along the lines of $1.2 million lead. At this point, in 2011 or 2012, Full Tilt went under, but before 2011. But before that happened, they stopped playing. In fact, Tom Dwan stopped playing for a decent amount of time, at least a month or two, I think, before Full Tilt went down. After that, there's just been a slew of excuses as to why he can't play, or Full Tilt did something wrong, or something happened, and it's been indefinitely postponed. And I think at this point, it's pretty fair to say it's unlikely to ever resume. However, the winner of the challenge is supposed to win the side bet. And that money is supposed to be escrowed to Phil Ivey. Well, that money is not escrowed. So now Tom Dwan is avoiding playing this challenge. Essentially, you know, when you look at his chance to win the side bet, it's extremely low given that he's already down 30 binds in the challenge. And this money is really Jungle Man's money. And in fact, for me personally, I have a lot of friends that have action on Jungle Man's side. And there's tons of side bets on the internet as to who would win this challenge. And now Tom Dwan has gone conveniently missing, avoided the subject, not played any hands, and is just off the grid on money that he said was supposed to be escrowed. In my opinion, that is fucked up, and that should not be tolerated by the poker community. In fact, when people defend Tom Dwan for what he's done, and some of the posts in the threads are absolutely ridiculous, like, it's not like he stole the money from his wallet, like, he's, you know, they're poker players and, like, something or other, and Full Tilt, and, like, Tom Dwan. the point is this. If you say this money is escrowed and you have a challenge that you're laying to the world, and then you don't escrow the money and don't back that up with the play that's required, you are scamming your opponent. And that money, the money in equity that he, frankly, if you look at the remaining hands, obviously Jungle Man has an edge on those remaining hands. In my opinion, he owes the equity on those hands as well as the side bet. And honestly, if he just wants to forfeit the equity on those hands and just pay the side bet, that's acceptable. But that money isn't there. So this money disappearing and not being paid to Jungle Man is, in my personal opinion, the biggest scam that has ever happened for an individual in poker. Now, of course, there's also Full Tilt Poker. It's a company, not an individual. If you want to call that a scam or not, I really don't know. I'm not sure what's correct, but definitely what happened there is also a big problem. But in terms of one individual doing this to another person, I don't understand how there are people within the community that are even willing to tolerate this. It's absurd to me. However, on that note, I can say this. Everyone does have their bad days.
Stand in the line just to hit a new low. You're faking a smile with the coffee to go. And tell me your life's been way offline. You fall into pieces every time. And I don't need no carrying on. 'Cause you had a bad day. You're taking one down. You sing a sad song just to turn it around. You say you don't know. You tell me don't lie. You're working a smile and you go for a ride. You had a bad day. The camera don't lie. You're coming back down and you really don't mind. You had a bad day. You had a bad day.
You won't subscribe to my channel. You won't. You won't subscribe. You won't follow me on Snapchat. You won't. WCP Rider definitely won't follow me there.